Hello. So in today's stream, I'll be looking at Swift 6 concurrency. It's a topic that I've been exploring recently. I even did a sort of a Medium blog post for it. So if you go to my Medium, I recently did an article which was basically a summary of the results of my research on Swift 6 concurrency. And that's because initially I was just using async await. And funny enough, I was expecting that async await would trigger, async await plus tasks would trigger some sort of multi-threading on the programs I was writing. But what was happening is instead that was triggering interleaving on the main thread. So you get this situation where, yes, you have asynchronous processing, but all of that asynchronous processing is just happening on one thread. So so I researched it a little bit, learned about some interesting things that I'll be exploring in this live coding stream, and hopefully demonstrating for anybody who's been relying on tasks and async await, like my old self. Yeah, so this is a very detailed article. If you get time, I would encourage you to check it out. But today, my plan is to do all of this, but in like a demo application, and explore those ideas, and kind of see also how far my understanding of Swift concurrency goes. I mean, how far I've really gotten those concepts. So what I'm going to do is I'll try and demonstrate some of this with a simple Swift program, and then I'll move over into doing something with Xcode. Perhaps try and run it within a small, simple iOS application that has some persistence layer and UI, so that we can also see some of the benefits you might get if you are like building a real world application. I could just go ahead and do all of this with iOS, but let me start by a simple program. So if you are new to Swift, if you have Swift DevTools in your environment, you can just create a .swift file and start writing code from there. So an example of a simple Swift application would just be a hello world program, which is, if I'm not wrong, this would be a one-liner like that. And if we executed this, so I'll just invoke the Swift compiler with that Swift command, and we can go ahead and use it to run the current file, and you see you get hello world. So hello world Swift is like Python hello world. It's super simple. But now let's try and introduce some functions in this hello world program. So let's have a function that adds two numbers. It receives a number A. Let me make that a named argument. So this is how you declare a function. So you can specify the arguments like that. And if you don't want your caller to be aware of, or to need to know the names of your parameters, you can use that underscore to allow them to pass any value they want. And this just adds the two numbers and returns the value, which I think with Swift you can just do A plus B, and that will actually do the trick. And our main scope is main, so we don't need to like declare a main function or a main class. So when you create a Swift, if you are doing a Swift single file program, that file is the entry point of the application. or the program itself. So you don't need to do anything fancy. And this would give us the number, and you can print that. So you can say sum is the sum. So for anybody who doesn't have basic Swift knowledge, this is, consider these are what's the word? Consider this a quick deep dive into the basics of Swift. So with that, so of course I'll write it first, and then you can just execute it by invoking Swift and pointing it to the current file. Some warnings there. Results of, okay, so the implicit return type doesn't work all the time. In fact, let me see what it prints. So these are just warnings. I should still get the output. Okay, so in some cases you'll still have to use a return statement. So we need to do return there to actually get the value, and then we can print it. Oh yeah, I didn't specify a return type for the add function. Yeah, so for the return type, we use this arrow keyword or syntax for returning a value from a function. So you'd have something like this and specify the return type. And that's how you define return. I didn't mean to exit. So I think, yeah. So now when we execute, we get 8, which is the sum of 5 and 3. So if you're doing asynchronous programming, one of the quick ways to achieve that is to just mark the function as async. So you can mark the function with the async keyword, and when the function is marked as async, you need to call await when you're calling it from at the invocation point. So this using this await is important, because if this add function is executing on a different thread other than the main thread, then you need to signal Swift to suspend execution, at least for this specific task. Suspend execution, wait for the result of add to be available, and then resume execution. So this is basically a way of doing suspend. And like I said, suspend could be done when you're doing interleaving on the main thread. So it doesn't necessarily mean we are doing multi-threading here. So all this add function and the line that calls the add function, both of them are still running on the main thread. But what you want is a way to tell the main thread that I'm waiting for this thing to finish. You can pick up another task and resume with that. That's the purpose of await. So I think this would be valid syntax. Just test that out. Yeah, so that will still print sum of 8. So async await is the most fundamental part of synchronous programming, or we wouldn't really call it concurrency. It's just asynchronous programming. So it's the most fundamental part of asynchronous programming in Swift, doing async await. What matters now is in which context are you doing async await. So the next level would be creating a task. So you can create a task here, which is now a scope of work that we want to be executed in one unit. So you can have multiple operations occurring in your program, but there are operations that you want to execute in order. And you can take those operations, put them in a task, so that when Swift is doing interleaving on the main thread, it will not do interleaving and change the order of execution for tasks that you want the Swift compiler to execute in a specific order. So we can create a task and we can actually move, in fact, we can move our sum calculation and printout to that task like that. And now the printing will execute within this task. So if we, just to check here, so if we execute this, I will see that we still get the sum 8, but it's occurring now within a task. The benefit of this is, I think the best way to demonstrate it, let's imagine we don't have, let's create a situation where we don't have this task. Formatting without the ID. Okay, let me just do that. So we have an add function. Let's create another function, call it subtract. And this function subtracts two numbers. Of course, we mark it as async. And all it does, it returns A times B. Now we can call add, and that will suspend, and then we can call sub to get the subtraction, and we'll call await and sub here, and let's say we're subtracting maybe 15 and 5. So 15 from 5, 5 from 15, and we know that this will also suspend. So if we run this program in this order, while it's executing, when we get to adding, this thread will suspend and wait for the result of add to be available. When the result is available, then it will move to subtract, and we can see that. Let's just check, make sure the program is actually a valid one. So I'm seeing some warnings. Oh, interpolation. Interpolation shouldn't be an issue. Circular reference. Oh, I think it's because I'm using this variable name sub for the subtraction function and the result of subtraction. Let's use a different. Let me call it rs for result. I think that should work, and we can execute it. Yeah. So is it giving me 75? Oh, I'm doing multiplication. So subtraction. That means we use this symbol. So I'll just execute that. Okay, so you see we get 10. So this gives us the output that we wanted, but the order in which the execution is happening is first sum needs to complete, and then result is executed. And we can actually log that and see. So here we can say print waiting for sum, and when sum is done, then we can see that after that we'll be waiting for the next one, which would be just print waiting for sub, and then once the values are available, we print them. So let's see the output of that. Yeah, so waiting for sum, waiting for sub, and then we get the values. But we want a situation where we can execute both the addition and subtraction at the same time. So we can have the Swift compiler do interleaving on the main thread, and that is if you're waiting for add, sub can execute. If you're waiting for sub, add can execute. And one way we can achieve that is to put this into a task. So you can have them in a task like so. So I'll have each of them within a separate task, and then at the end we'll print the result of the addition and subtraction. The order of execution might end up not being different because, like I mentioned, we're still not doing multi-threading. We're just doing interleaving on the main thread. We are swapping execution. So if somebody is still waiting, we can execute something else. If that is still waiting, we can go back to the thing we were waiting for and check the outcome of that operation. So with that, I think I'll add some additional logging here. So waiting for some. So let's see when the compiler is actually invoking this function. So running add, and in this case print running sub. And let's execute that. Okay. Yeah, so since we put the values of the outcome of both sum and add within a separate task, we are introducing scoping here. So this variable is available, sum is available within the scope of this particular task, and a result like RS here is available within the scope of this result task. So one way we can resolve this is by using global variables. And I think before I introduce global variables, let's just ignore the printing here, and just because I just want us to see the order of execution. If that is going to be different, if there's going to be anything unique about it. So I'll just invoke the compiler, and so I'm getting, consider replacing with assignment or removing. Okay, but that's just a warning. So so it's just telling me that we didn't use RS. So yeah, this is just a warning. We can ignore it. Yeah, the compiler is warning that we didn't like print the result of sum and RS. And here I just wanted to see the order of execution, but just to remove that annoying warning, we can instead just print the values here, RS. And or if you don't want to print the values, there's actually an alternative option. We could use this underscore thing, and that means we don't care about the outcome of that execution. So you can ignore the result. It's basically signaling to the compiler that we can ignore the result of sum or subtract. And just run it. Yeah, so you see running add, waiting for sum, running sub, waiting for sub. So in this case, because both functions are not really taking that long to execute, you'll notice that the interleaving is still using the same order. But when you do this, you're giving the compiler the ability to switch the order of execution. So if add ends up being something that takes really long, we can switch over and execute something else. In fact, we can try and explore this just to see whether the compiler actually does this. Let's do some slow matrix multiplication. I'll call this slow matrix, and it will be async. We don't care about the outcome of that multiplication. We just want to see how long it will take to execute. So actually, I'm not going to write the matrix multiplication code from scratch. Instead, I have a sample here that we can use for that multiplication. And so this is the function. So basically what this does is matrix multiplication, goes through row by row, multiplying the values. So I'll import this. I'll try and bring this back with me to the program. But let me just take the whole function. And that means I can get rid of this. Okay. Didn't mean to delete that. And we have this slow matrix multiplication function. So it receives an array of doubles and basically two values of doubles, and it attempts to execute them. So what we can do is we can create a separate task here, and within that separate task, we can call the slow matrix multiplication. And with it, we'll provide an array of values to multiply. I wish it was structured in a way that I didn't have to pass any values. Let's try and initialize them here. So A, I wish I could have let's have some values. Double. So I think the way this is structured is we can pass in a multi-dimensional array or a single-dimensional array, because the declaration syntax doesn't really specify. So let's start by assuming that we can pass in any dimension. So this, I'm just passing a 1D array, but for better experiment, it would be nice if we could pass in a multi-dimensional array, kind of make it actual matrix multiplication. Of course, I'll get rid of the return type. We don't really care about the value returned from this execution. We just want something that will take really long to execute. So just going through the function, so it will use the array A and B, and it will obtain the row count. So it's looking for column count because the array is supposed to be multidimensional. I don't know if this would work the same way as C. So we can pass in an array, and within the array we have like multiple arrays. Let me try that. So we have 5, 10, 11, and within there we have another array, some values, maintaining the dimension, and we have that, and so it will obtain the row count and the column count, then b dot count. So the row count for A, okay, A would represent the rows and B would represent the columns. So this doesn't actually need to be multidimensional, but let's see what happens if we make each of them multidimensional. And then inner would be b dot count. So b at index 1 dot count. So the first array, and then it obtains the count for this. And this obtains the count for this. So this would be 2, and this would be 3. So this, we expect that this will be, so this will be 3. And this should give us 2. A dot count. So this would be 2 as well. At least that's what I expect to happen. I'm not even sure if this is the correct syntax, so just exploring here. And then after that, we'll create an array, repeating array, count column, count rows. Okay, wonder what this does. Creates a new array containing the specific number of a single repeated value. Okay, also it's like duplicating. So you give it a value, give it a count, and then it will duplicate that value. So that's what this constructor for creating and duplicating array does. So you will be repeating 0.0 based on the number of columns. So it will regenerate 0.0 for all the columns, which is, this means it will repeat this 3 times. So it isn't even that much. And then I wonder how this count argument does. Okay, so it will be repeating 0.0. Oh, it's nested. So we have this array that will be repeating this particular array. So it will be an array duplicating another array with this number of columns, and that will duplicate based on the number of rows. So basically, this will generate the matrix itself. Then of course, we loop through the rows, loop through the columns, so because it's 2-dimensional, and then for each phase, okay, so it's 3-dimensional. So there's the rows, the columns, and then the length, if I can use that term. And for each, we obtain the index for the row, the column, and then we multiply by the row and column on B. So we're taking A, so A represents our first matrix and B represents our second matrix, and then we multiply that and store the value in sum. And that we update the result value, which is this array that's initialized but doesn't contain values, so it just contains the zeros for each specific index. So we update result, and and then we return the value. Just to see what this is, we can dump, although we don't care about the result, but we can dump it just to see it in the logs. Let me make sure the syntax is correct. Keep doing that. So let's see. Type annotation, missing in pattern, slow matrix. Okay, I think there's something wrong with my declaration. Slow matrix multiply. We don't have a return type here, do we? No. So what type annotation are we talking about? Let me just check that again. So we're seeing fail to produce. Okay. What? Okay. Fail to produce diagnostic for expression. Please submit a bug report. And this is so weird. I'm sure I left out something, but the compiler is unable to tell me what. I think it could be the syntax that I'm using for the matrix here. I wish the compiler could like demonstrate what the problem really is. Let me see the specific line. So this is the big problem with the Swift compiler. Instead of always telling you what's wrong, it usually fails and leaves you to do your own diagnosis. There's a popular exception that Swift usually returns, especially for large programs. I think the exception is Swift could not type check this expression in valid time or something like that. The compiler is not able to type check this expression. And this is usually very annoying because it's the compiler giving up and not really telling you what went wrong. The compiler is unable to type check this expression in this amount of time. Try breaking up the expression into distinct sub-expressions, which is super annoying. So I guess this can fall into the same class. It's like what you're doing is so complex that, which is not usually the case. Sometimes it's just a simple program, like what we are writing is not a very complex program. But the compiler is having trouble kind of telling you exactly what's wrong with your program. So that means you're left on your own. You kind of have to figure out what happened. So this is pointing to line 39. So let me see if I can diagnose it. So let me get line numbers. Line 39. So it's actually pointing here. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. This should just be a regular syntax error. So I forgot to complete this invocation of slow matrix multiply, which I should give a shorter name. So it's slow matrix multiply, so SLM maybe. SLM and then I think this should invoke that function. Okay, so so that works, and we get some matrix multiplication. So the dump contains what would be the matrix. So we have 2 elements, 3 elements, and then the internal array has 3 elements. So the 2 elements are the 2 arrays, and those 2 arrays will contain the values after multiplication, and then the internal array will contain this value. So since this is still 2D, so you have 500 will match up with 1340, 535 will match up with 3283, and 1390 will match up with 6292. So it is still 2D to some degree, but it's not taking long to execute, which we can check by doing like a timestamp. So I'll just get so if we do start and we do end here, and we obtain the duration. So this is the part I don't know how to do. I'll assume I can obtain time interval, which is the representation of that duration in seconds. And yeah, so I can obtain end time interval, and then subtract that from start time interval. I don't think this is valid syntax. This is what I would probably write if I was using Java or something. Java would probably system.current time, which is usually much simpler. So you can take the whatever you are in the program, you can do system.current time millis, and that will give you the duration in milliseconds, and then you can subtract across. Here, I think the date itself can be subtracted, so I don't even need to obtain the duration. I don't need to obtain the time interval. I think that's still valid syntax. And we could print that. So SLM exec time is duration. And yeah, let me try and run that. Oh, okay. Oh, cannot find. Okay, so I need to import foundation for me to get date. So the import foundation that should handle obtaining the date, and now we can try executing it. Cannot convert value of date to expression, expected argument, time interval. Yeah, I want time interval. Okay, so I guess I have to get time interval from date. And I hope Swift is convenient enough to allow me to just call time interval on the date object and obtain time interval. Time interval, time interval. There we go. And with that, I think we can try and see if we'll get like a count for how long this takes to execute. Value of type date has no member. Okay, fine. Let me look at the docs for date. So date, what we want is a way to extract time interval. Yeah. So there is time interval since now, the time interval between the date value and the current date and time. Oh yeah, I think this is better. Time interval since a particular date. So we can take the current date, call time interval, and then pass in the end date, the start date, that is. the interval between the receiver and for another parameter. If the receiver is earlier than another date, the return value is negative, okay? If another date is nil, the results are undefined. So let's use time interval since. So I'll get rid of this. So the duration will be since, so it will be time interval since start. I think that should give us the duration. What did I do? Go back in. And so I don't use Vim as much as I should, and that means a lot of the key bindings are not, I'm not familiar with. And when I try to use the key bindings that I use for IDEs, they don't work here. So I might be a bit slow, but I'll be moving on to do some things with Xcode, kind of demonstrate this in a real life scenario, or quote unquote real world project, which is an iOS application, and then we'll see how that works. So let me just execute that. And I hope to use Vim more, so that I can be better at these key bindings. So it doesn't take very long. That is 0.00 something seconds. But we can try and make it more inefficient. And there's a way we can generate this array programmatically so that it can have a lot more values. We could use this array repeating API thing to generate an array for A and B. And C, because it's 2D, I just need to do like double iteration and then generate values from that. Let me try that. Might fail spectacularly, but it's probably worth trying. So the iterator for A, I'll call it IA. Let's count from 0 to maybe, I want a big number here, but I don't want to call int.max. I just want a large value. Maybe we can use random. No, I don't need to randomize here. I could just do a crazy number like 5 million maybe. And so that will be IA, and that should so this is the matter of arrays being static or dynamic, and I wonder if I could generate the array or declare it and then update it, which I think is what's happening with result. Okay, we're just changing the value at the index of I and J, so we are not really changing the size of result, which is something we could still do with this, because I want to generate the array and then still access it. Let me see. This was supposed to be about concurrency, and it's now becoming about everything but concurrency. Okay, let me try and simplify this, that this stream doesn't become about matrix multiplication instead of concurrency. Let me do something inefficient and static. Um, um, mm, I could keep this still to D, but I could just expand it. Let me see if I expand it. Maybe make the values bigger. And then expand it into additional dimensions. So now we have 1, 2, 3. We could make it 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means we'll do the same for this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And do the same thing for this, which I could just use the same values I'm using here. I could still use these same values because it's just multiplication, so they don't really need to be unique. They won't be a factor in this. So this will change. It's no longer 3 by 2. And I've made the values a bit slightly bigger. Doesn't mean it will take as long as I think it will, because the size of the values really come in. I think the main thing that will determine how long this multiplication takes is the dimensions that you end up having for the matrix. So the bigger the dimensions, the more the iterations required for each multiplication sequence, and the longer the thing should take. So let's see if we've achieved at least an effect, something observable. Why do I keep exiting? I just want to execute this. Okay, that took a bit longer, but didn't even hit 1 second. So I'm hoping we can make it take much longer than that. Okay, I'll increase the dimension a bit further. So that's 6. I think this still has to be the same line. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, let's see how this plays out. Okay, in fact, it takes way less time than the other. But it's taking some time, which is measurable. So let's see if we can use it to try and demonstrate the thing. So if we were to call SLM here, and not have it in a separate task, I'll just comment out this. And do a measure of duration. And this would be whichever time is, and time interval since start. Oh, okay. Okay, so that takes that time. It's not significant enough for us to actually see it pause execution and kind of slow down the program. So it might not be a significant enough demonstration for blocking, because it's still almost instant. So if you execute it, it still executes fairly fast. But at least we've seen how to generate the tasks, how to do asynchronous functions, and how to call await. I wonder if we measured the execution of the whole program and maybe see if there's a difference, which the current hardware is really fast, so even this might not demonstrate that effect. But let me just try and do that. So these are executing within tasks. Removing them from the task will not make that much of a difference because they are very simple operations. So let me get a duration on this, and so we have start, so end will be the date, time interval since start, and still this will not be significant enough for us to have like a demonstration. So we need to, so it's not too different. And I think this is where the other point comes in, is most programs will not require concurrency, because we are not even doing concurrency, and the program is still fairly fast enough. Of course, this is not a real world scenario. This is a toy thing. It's like a hello world program for adding numbers and matrix multiplication that doesn't take that long. So when we work with iOS and like build up a persistence layer and have some UI interaction happening, then some of those things will become a bit more clear. But at least in terms of the syntax for getting some interleaving on your main thread, at least that should be clear with this. And even when we do the concurrency bit of this, we'll use some of this and add in some additional things to take full advantage of the hardware, which is by doing actual concurrency. So I'll end this here and move over to Xcode. And in Xcode, we'll try and do like an actual application and see how that goes. So I'm just going to create a new project for iOS. Swift UI, of course. We can call this which context will fit. Let me call it async lab. And okay, just have it in desktop. Okay, so that is our project ready to go. And I can, okay, I'll execute this on simulator. And okay, some things are still loading up. So what I'm hoping we can do is we can write up a simple iOS application that doesn't use concurrency or async or any of that, and see what the difference would be in terms of responsiveness, in terms of performance between the version of the application that doesn't use any concurrency and the version of the application that uses some concurrency, or starting with async await, and which is basically interleaving on the main thread, and then see how that performance changes with the actual concurrency. So I'm still trying to think which domain to base this on. Maybe we can make a database of tweets, maybe. I think that would be a good enough context. Get an initial build. Okay, so now we have the application. Let me get some inspiration from Dribble. Not Dribble. What's the other site? It's Dribble. Yeah. So we just want a simple interface that is able to list some of that data, and the data here will be tweets. So something like this, without all the additional visual elements. And maybe we can go as far as providing a UI for composing a tweet. And then perhaps we can use that to demonstrate some abilities of using this. I would like it to be multiple tabs. If it's multiple tabs, then we can try and do navigation as data is loading, and that would allow us to see whether our responsiveness is affected by whichever approach you take in terms of concurrency. So we can start by doing a simple interface that does the listing, and then another. In fact, I think the thing to do would be to move this into a tab. or the tab could be for listing something else like profiles or followers. I don't. So you can have a tab for listing the tweets, and then I don't know how Twitter does tabs. Let's see if you can borrow anything from Twitter for this. Okay, so you have the for you and then notifications. So maybe we can do for you and notifications. So you can move from the list of tweets to notifications, and notifications can be its own persistence layer, and yeah, let me do some modeling for that. Just create a model here for the tweet. It's into a separate folder. And so this will be so it will be a struct, and property. In terms of properties, maybe we can have UUID or UUID. To use UUID, I need foundation, and maybe initialize this. And with the tweet, you have the contents of the tweet. And maybe like count links. And perhaps you can have retweets, and we could have replies. That is actually this could be another model. What else? Yeah, I think maybe timestamp created, and this would be a timestamp, and I think that would qualify as a model. And then we can create the reply model. So this will be a struct reply, have an ID. In fact, let me use ID here instead of UID. So the advantage of using ID instead of using UIDs is if you use UID, then the model is not automatically identifiable. So when a particular model is identifiable, it means when doing iteration, Swift is able to identify, it's able to determine the uniqueness of each entry in that loop. And this helps in Swift UI when you are using the model to display, for example, a list. If you're using list, if you're using like a for each display for it, if it's identified, then get that comparison being available to you by default. So yeah, that's the importance of the advantage of that. So for it to be identifiable, we need to have an ID. One of the variables need to be an ID, and that will automatically make it qualify as identifiable. Having the protocol here helps with making sure that later on, if you or some other developer tries to change this into something else, then you'll get like a compile time warning. So for instance, if I change this to UID, I'll get a compile time warning that's telling me that this model is not identifiable. So using ID has those advantages. So links, oh yeah, so links is integer, which is 0. Retweets integer, which can be 0 as well. Get this font up a little bit. Okay, then in reply, I'll also use the UID here. Just be a basic UID. So what does a reply have? So it's already nested to a tweet. So I'll have the tweet ID here because it belongs to a specific tweet. And the reply has content. Yeah, I think that should do. Of course, I need foundation for this. So a reply can also have likes, and it can have retweets. So in some cases, the reply has a reply, but we won't be handling that case here. The goal is to demonstrate concurrency, so I'll try and make this demonstration simple enough. So for the other tab, then we can have notifications. Or I think something closer to the tweet would be bookmarks. So let's use bookmark instead. So this is just a model bookmark. I'll be using UID, so I need to bring in foundation and of course make it identifiable. ID is UUID and UUID. So the bookmark would be a bookmark of maybe a tweet, so you can have the tweet ID here. Yeah, maybe we can have a timestamp. So created. So when that bookmark was created, and also for the tweets, let's have a timestamp. So this should do. So we have bookmark, we have reply, then we have tweet. So now we can do the UI, which most of it would still fit in content view. So within content view, what we can do here is introduce tabs. So create a tab view, and for each of the tab views we can have a tab. So with the tab, you can have a title for the tab, and you can have an icon. So that's why it's referring to system image, and the content will be the actual container for that tab. Tabs, to make it clear what tabs would be is, there's a UI here that has that demonstration. I don't think I need to explain tabs. You guys know what tabs are. So it's a complex concept, and also you'll be able to see, we'll be able to see it in the UI itself. So we'll have a system image, and with the system image, we can now provide the actual view. For now, I'll just have something like text hello tab, and this would be, call it for you, and the system image could probably be art.fill, maybe. Yeah. So that gives us that that look. And we can introduce additional tabs. So we also need a tab for bookmarks. So for the bookmark, I don't know if there's a bookmark icon available by default. I was hoping there is. Yeah, so that's available by default. Nice. And you can have the view for that, which will be what the bookmarks are. So you can already switch back and forth between the individual spots. So there's bookmark. So the replies will be nested with the tweets, so we don't need a separate tab for that. Maybe I can do another tab for settings. Here we'll use the gear icon, and I think that should do it. Okay. So for the first time, I'm referring to an icon that doesn't exist. Okay. Yeah. So gear. Yeah. And so this will be generally how the UI will look. So now we can have the dedicated points. So we can have, I don't know whether to do this in the same file. Tempted to do it in the same file. Okay, let's do it in the same file. So I'll just create, instead of creating multiple files, let's have the for you view here. And this for you view, you can use vstack, and that vstack will contain the contents for you. And now we can replace this with the actual thing. For you view. So yeah, so it will refer to the for you page, and we can have the other view, which is bookmark view. And this should give us the bookmark view, which we still haven't designed yet. Bookmarks page, and that means you can replace this with the actual bookmarks. And same thing, this can be replaced with the actual settings view. It's a struct here, settings view. And yeah, that can be the setting view. So settings. Okay, so now we have our 3 tabs. So we have the 3 tabs, the for you view, the bookmark view, and the settings view. So the purpose of the for you view will just to list the tweets and the accompanying replies. And that should not be too complex. So we just need a view model for this. Um, I'll have the view models on separate files, so I'll not keep everything in one file, so that we can have a bit of organization. So I'll make the for you view model there, and the for you view model is just for this. The purpose will be, of course, it will be so in the past this would be a state object, but after iOS 17, I think they changed it so that the view model is just a regular state object. So it's not, at least on the UI, it's not very unique. So it's just be state view model is equals to for you view model. And the purpose of the view model, if I was to make this the title, so the purpose of the view model will be to give us the list of tweets, and we can do something like for each view model dot tweets. So for each tweet, we do like a UI for it. So so the UI would be something like this, where we have something like a user profile and we have the tweet. Which means we could introduce another model, but I don't want this to be too nested. So I'll skip the user profile, or should I just do it? Well, let's just do the user profile. So you can change the model a bit. So we have the reply, but we can also have the user. Just call it user. And just initialize it with an empty user. And I'll make the user model here, user. Import foundation, of course, and the struct user. Of course, this is also identifiable, and we have an ID equals to that, and the user, you just need a name and a handle, and maybe a timestamp. So since this is not the persistence layer representation, instead of having, I think that was on the, instead of having tweet ID here, okay, we don't need to nest the whole tweet. So, or do we? No, we don't need to nest the whole tweet. So we can just use tweet ID. Okay, so I'll take a small break and then I'll come back to resume building this, and basically doing what would be the concept for the UI, and then doing the persistence layer, and then we start to see whether, after generating some data, doing some network requests, if you're doing any network requests, we start to see whether we can start to see some performance issues, and then we optimize from there. So let me grab some tea or coffee, and then I'll be back in a bit. All right, I'm back. So I left off where I was. So I was putting together the model, and I think this is done. This should be good to go. And now we can focus on the UI. Bookmark. We have bookmarks. We have replies. We have the tweets, and we have a user. So now, with the introduction of the user, okay, we can use that profile in the settings tab. So we don't need to do anything special there. Let me just organize this a bit more by moving the view model into its separate folder. And there we go. So here I'll need to use some Swift UI elements. So I'll import Swift UI. I need this to be a class. Making it default enables you to get static dispatch, which is a runtime optimization, which can significantly or slightly improve the performance of the application. Because usually if you don't make the class final, the compiler expects that this class can be extended by another class. So you have to, it has to evaluate it at runtime. But if you make it final, you're telling the compiler that this class will not be extended by anybody else. So the functionality that we provide is the final functionality. So the functions are will not be, there'll be no overrides for the functions themselves. So yeah, so you get static dispatch. If you don't make it final, you get dynamic dispatch. Yeah. So I will make the for you model. So in the past, I would probably extend observable object. I think, yeah. I would extend observable object, and then for any property, I would use this published value, and that will be the tweets. But since iOS 17, I think, let's just see which iOS version removed that. Okay, so I think it's since iOS 17, I no longer need to do this. In fact, I don't think you're even allowed to do it. So let me just have like a valid thing here and see how the IDE will react. So actually, I think this is observable object. I think it's observable. I think it's observable object. Is it not? It's observable object. Just looking at the documentation. Okay, it's not documented there. Let's see if I can pull something. Swift UI observable object. So a type of object with a publisher that emits before the object has changed. Yeah, so you extend the observable object and then you call published. So I wonder what that conformance is about. Maybe it's related to the constructors, but that never used to be the case. Yeah, I use published. Okay, perhaps it's the constructor. So if I provide a constructor, no, we change to, okay. So it requires some other things. I guess it's because of this way of writing view models having been changed. So this would not work. So starting with 17, you're required to use an annotation. So this would be observable, I believe. And when it comes to the individual objects, you just declare them as regular variables. So here I can have variable tweets and have my tweet, and yeah, and that would pass for valid. And the way we use it, of course, here is we declare it. Forgot to add var there. So after declaring it, that will give us access to the tweets. And if the advantage of using this is you get observability in terms of if the list of tweets changes in the view model, we don't have to request the list afresh. Instead, SwiftUI is observing that list. So if any of the elements change or if the size of the list changes, then that is reflected automatically on the UI. So you don't have to, after initializing the list, you don't have to keep checking back for when values change. So that is the main advantage. Maybe let's use title 3 there. Just title. And this will list our tweets. I'll try and get this basic UI going for it, which I think this could be a VStack, and for the user profile, it's a HStack in a VStack, then the content, and then this could fit in a HStack. So the root container would be a VStack, and within that VStack we can have a HStack. This will have the user profile, and then we can have the tweet content here. So that is the tweet content, and then we can have the HStack for the timestamp. Do we even need a timestamp for that? Okay, if we're doing time and date separately, maybe, but you could still format this as is. So I can have the timestamp here, and it will be the time, so A for AM, and then you have that dot thing, and then there's the day, the month, and the year. So DD MM and the year itself. I think that should be it. So maybe the replies. Okay, so the other thing is the tweet and like count, which can be in a HStack here. So this will have tweet, retweet, and likes. And then below it, we have the action buttons, which could also fit in a HStack. Action buttons. So this is the first one is reply. The second one is retweet, and the third one is like. Maybe even share, and just add that for aesthetics. Should we? Okay, we can just have it. I don't see any harm in having it. So that should be our UI. So with the UI available, now we can move on to try and do the actual thing. So so with the user profile, I don't know if I can do this side by side so that I don't have to keep switching back and forth. In fact, let me try and have it this side by side. Instead of bringing in the whole browser, you could get a screen grab of this UI. and then we can use the screen grab to do the thing. Okay, I can minimize that, but not so much. Okay, I think I have to save it first. Okay, and then we can use it. Yeah, so so you can do the user profile, and that will be an image. Should I use an actual image? Maybe I can demonstrate this for somebody who doesn't know how to do it. So let's try and bring in an actual image. So I guess our sample faces. I'll get some from Unsplash. Okay. They don't need to be very big. So I'll get like 3, and then I can shuffle them for different accounts. I mean, different temporary data, because this is not actual data. So, and the third one would be let me get this. Okay, so I have 3 profile pictures. So I'll just rename them. No, I don't even need to rename them yet. I think I can just bring them in. So the way you do this is you just go into Xcode, and then you go to assets, and you can drop them here. I don't know if they provide a way to, yeah, you can actually do an import. So let me put them in a folder and then import that folder. Call it profiles. So I have a folder in desktop, and I can import that. It's called profiles. Oh wait, it imported the whole folder. I want to import the individual photos. So profile. Oh, okay. Yeah, this doesn't help. So what you can do, you can just drop the. Oh wait, that. Okay. Yes, you can just drop the individual assets into that asset folder. So like that, and they'll become available to your project. And with that also you can rename them. So maybe I'll call this profile 1. This would be profile 2, and this can be profile 3. And now that means we'll be able to use them for the profile picture. And the way we use them is so we use the image object, and we refer to a resource. So there's multiple ways you can display an image. So you can use resource, which points to something in the assets folder. You can use system name, which points to SF symbols. So SF symbols are the default icons, like the ones I was using with the gear, the heart, bookmark. So that's under system image. Or you can pass in a UI image. So a UI image is from UI kit. The advantage with this is you can do some fairly advanced things like downloading a binary representation of an image and then passing that into UI image, and then UI image will be able to encode it into an actual image, and then you pass that to the Swift UI image, which will be able to display it. So those are the two variants I've used. There's also CG image. I think this is for when you want to like draw the image yourself and have that rendered. But the main important ones are system image and the resource which points to the system. So here I'll refer to profile one, which I think even the simulator should be able to pick. Yeah. Let's see. It's able to find it. Dot resizable. So we can define the dimensions for the image. So it's something like this. So I guess you can use width of like 100 and height of 100 and do an alignment of center. Yeah, so it's still not displaying because our tweets list is empty. So what we could do is we can initialize this with a test tweet. And I need a good constructor. Let me get a nice constructor that we can use to init. So of course that's the default constructor, and I can have a different constructor here that just passes content okay. In fact, what I need is, so one that passes content it's not links, it's likes. So you can pass in content, and what else is a must here? Maybe likes, retweets, and the user. So a user profile. User is that. So the other fields have default initialization, so we don't need to init them here. So you can do initialization whatever is passed, but we can update whatever is passed, but the other fields have default initialization. So is equals to likes, self dot what's the other thing, retweets is equals to retweets, and self dot user is equals to that user. I think that's the three things, and I can now utilize that constructor here to pass in the content. The content can be the same as what we have on the sample. Got my first ride with Uber today. Okay, the worst experience of exclamation. Then the likes value is 12, retweets 1, and then the user is user, and so I could also get a custom constructor here for quick initialization. So I'll get the name and the handle, and yeah, I think that's it. So the other thing we can introduce here is the profile picture. So maybe pic, which is just the name of the pic as represented in the assets folder. And yeah, so pick, which is the string, and here you can say self dot name is equals to the name that's passed in, self dot handle is equals to the handle, and self dot pick is equals to that picture. And now we can use that constructor here to simplify our initialization of the user. So the user is Ben Collins, and their handle is at Ben Collins Stick, and pick could be pick one. Yeah, that should be it. Seeing some exception, some error here. Let's see what that's about. Yeah, I mean, you have a tweet. I've given you a tweet. Expected expression. Oh, okay, I'm missing that. I think that should be good. Could try and format it a little bit more, but I think it's clear. So we have like a dummy tweet here for testing. So now if we go back to our simulator, I think we should have something that displays what we have. What name am I using? So okay, so it's profile. Okay. So we have the image, and then right next to the image, you'll have a VStack that will have the name and handle. So can use tweet dot name dot user dot name, and the next thing we'll show here is the handle. The foreground is a bit different. Use secondary, and the font is maybe headline. So that should give us the profile. Okay. Simulator. The preview is not working. I think I missed something somewhere. Oh yeah, so I don't have a no argument constructor here, so I need to create one. I think I should do it. Okay, yeah, that got it to work, and now we can go back to the view and let's try and see. Yeah, we have our Ben Collins that doesn't look anything like what is there, but there's room for customization. What we can do here is, first of all, clip it by providing a clip shape. You'll use a circle. I think that should, okay, so that should get us somewhere. And then in terms of scaling, I don't know if I can do scale to fill so that it's not stretched like that. Okay, yeah, that looks a bit more realistic. Also, the size is significantly larger, so provide 50. Then it doesn't need to be perfect. We're just using this as a demonstration platform. You can provide some spacing so that it moves to the side, and some padding. This padding, I can apply it to the whole individual tweet so that it's more uniform. So you can have uniform padding like that, so that you have the user profile and the rest of the tweet content in line. So then with Ben Collins, so we need all the text to align to the left. So you can do multi-line text alignment and do leading. Sometimes that doesn't work. It doesn't produce the exact effect that we are looking for. And when that happens, we can do a frame maximum width, and make that infinity, and then do an alignment of leading on that. That usually works. Yeah, that will give us the effect, and we can apply the same to the handle, frame max width, infinity, and then apply alignment, leading. Okay, so that should do it for the user profile. And now we can work on the tweet content, which will just be text, tweet dot content. Of course, we can do multi-line text alignment leading, but that will not be enough. So we can add max width for the frame and specify that as infinity, and then have an alignment of leading. Okay, and that should give us that. We can play around with the font a little bit. So font can be call out. Call out is too small. Not headline. Is it headline? No, it's not headline. Maybe sub headline. Headline, large title. I don't want to use custom fonts. It will be overkill for this. Let me see how headline works out. Not great. Let me just use sub headline. If sub headline bold, not great. Monospaced. Okay, that looks interesting. So we can work with that. And now, so that gives us the content. So now we can move over to the timestamp thing, which is one display, and that will be tweet dot created, and with created I'll want universal, or let's say display. Display, we should give us displayable format. The way we can get that displayable format is by creating an extension of date. I'll call that date plus plus. And so this will be an extension of date, and we can add a function there for display. And what that function will give us is a string representation of the text formatted. Of course, we need foundation. So we need the formatter for this, so that we can call date.formatted. And see here we can pass the date style and the time style, but no, I'm hoping we can pass one format and just a string date using the default date format style. Let's see. Date style goes to date style. So I want a custom format, but I can't remember how this is done. Do we have a date formatter? Yeah. We have a date formatter, and date formatter that accepts a pattern, maybe. Yeah, date format. Okay, so this can be string. So expecting, if this works, we can have we can have -a, and then we can have day, month, and year, if that works. So the formatter.format, date format, self.format. Okay, can we pass in the format? Okay. Can this give me a formatter? I probably have to go to docs for this. I can't remember how to use that. So let me just look for Swift date formatter, which I think that should be in Foundation. But let's see. So a formatter that converts between dates and their textual representation. Yeah, that's what we need. Instance of date formatter create string representation of NSDate and converts textual representation of date and time into NSDate object. But I want this to work the other way as well. I'll use a visible representation. So I can call string to get the Oh yeah. So we call string, then pass it the date, and then the format will apply the format you specified. So we can do format dot string, and from self here referring to the date. Swift wants a return statement, so we can provide that. So I think this should do it. So now when we go back to our UI, when we invoke display, that should try and format the date into the format that we want, and that should work for this. Okay, we have something close. Okay, so we can get that AM PM without the hyphen. So I can just go back to that and yeah, I think that should do it. The past I would have put this inside. I would have put this inside HStack, but we can just use infinity width and then apply alignment to that end. That should give us what we need. Okay, and then we can apply some padding. The padding I need is mostly vertical, so and maybe the font can be foreground style. Sorry, this is foreground, and let's use secondary for that. The font should be smaller, so I'll use caption. General caption. Yeah, I think that's okay. Maybe I can make it bold. And with that, we have a representation here. So the next thing will be the stats display. And the stats display, we can have the HTag representing the tweets and retweets. So text, and this text can be displaying tweets dot retweets, which is the count. That means this will have to be, yeah, we need to concatenate that, and so that will be the count. Retweets, and then we could do all of this in one text so that we don't have to provide multiple. This will be likes. Yeah, and if that's the case, then we don't even need the HStack. So we can do frame width, maximum width, infinity, and alignment leading. Yeah, I think that should be it. So there's a way text can be embedded inside values. So you could do I don't know if I can, I don't think I can declare variables here. Let me see. Retweets. So this is something fairly new. So you can create text like a tweet. In fact, since it's just text, let me see if I can just embed it inside the other text. I saw this somewhere, so I'm not sure if it will work, but let's just see. And I can apply font dot headline dot bold. Okay, yeah. Yeah, so this generally won't work. What am I missing? Okay, so you can't embed it like that, but there's a way you can pass in text representations inside inside like a string, and then you can pass custom formatting. I can't remember how that's done. I just saw it in passing. Because what I need to do is provide some custom formatting for the actual values, so that it doesn't look this plain and without doing a lot of nesting. Okay, since I can't remember that, I can just use a head stack. We can use a head stack there, and we'll have the first text, and this text will just have the tweet, sorry, the retweets, with some custom font, so same caption, but we make it bold, and next to it we can have text with the label retweets, and so this will be font caption, and the foreground will be different. So I'll use foreground style secondary, so that they look different. And yeah, so you just need to repeat this for the likes. So this is likes. Yeah, so that the actual values and the labels look different. The font is a bit tiny, maybe use footnote. Yeah, you can use footnote. Yeah, okay, that looks closely similar to the original, at least fairly close. So then with that, what's left is the action buttons. which would also fit in a H stack with center alignment. Max width, infinity, alignment, center this time, and we can have the specific icons. Message maybe. And then the other one is maybe some looping thing. I'll look at SF symbols to get the actual action icon names. And this other one is heart dot outline, so it's not fill. And the last one is share, which can be probably just be share. So we get some of them. The other thing is the padding. Let me see if I just apply padding generally. Okay, that won't apply to them. So I'll need to give each element padding, or we can use spacing. Spacing, and do a spacing of maybe 12. Okay, yeah, that's good. That allows us to separate the elements without having to manually go into each element in the head stack and applying padding to it. The foreground is secondary. I think by putting it here, it will apply to all the elements. Yeah, so that covers that. And yeah, we could play around with the font a little bit more, but that's unnecessary. The other thing I could do is padding vertical. Yeah, like push them down a little bit. So this has dividers. I don't know whether to add those dividers. Maybe I can just add it for the separators. Yeah, so we get a divider there, and we can have that for the profile as well. Divider. Yeah, so that gives us dividers for that. And for the profile, maybe I can give it I can embed this with the divider. We can give it a padding, a vertical padding, so that there's some space between the profile and the actual tweet, like that. I think also with the action patterns, we can take the same approach. Instead of applying the padding on the actual action buttons, we can apply them on the divider, like that. Yes. Okay, I guess that's done. So the profile needs to be dynamic, so it needs to come from the tweet itself. So this should be, or user, yeah, user.pick. And we need to provide the user with a valid temporary peak. So profile 1, I think that should do it. Maybe use profile 2 this time. There we go. And I think this works in dark theme as well. So if it was dark theme, that would still work. So we have the tweets section. So now when we generate the tweets, they'll be able to fit into that. The thing I need to take care of is the icons. So I'll go to SF symbols, try and get some valid icons. I don't think I need this anymore. Is this add another tweet? Okay, maybe we can add this element later on. So I have SF symbols here, and let's get the icons we don't have. So there's the reply one, there's the retweet one, which should be something like a loop or multiple arrows. I don't know if I can get something similar. Oh yeah, here it is. Nice. So with SF symbols, you can even do animation for the view. So you can also do different coloring, something called palette, where you can have different colors for different parts of the view. But so that applies to SF symbols that are layered like this, but this doesn't seem to have any layers. But we're not going to do any of that. So here we'll just get that symbol and use it for the retweet icon. Okay, so that gives us the retweet icon. The other one is Okay, I'm back. So where we left off was on building the tweet listing UI, so that we would list a number of tweets. And now we can see that yeah, so we can see that we sort of have the rough tweet UI display thing ready to go. Just position my camera a bit better. Yeah, I think that should do it. So then what we need to do is get the icons that are not working, like the just reduce this volume a little bit. So get the icons that are not working, like the share button. I think we have reply, we have retweet, we have like. So we just need to get this share one, share icon to work. And also my screen is frozen. How do I fix this? Let me try. That doesn't fix it. My screen share, I think, is frozen, so it's showing the wrong screen. Okay, let me try fixing